Can I apply for a PGWP and a spousal open work permit together as a single application? In this video, we are going to answer this question and dive into the details of this topic. But before we get started, my name is Madhur Parashar. I'm a licensed Canadian immigration consultant. My contact information and call scheduling link is on this video and in the description. If you have any immigration questions, feel free to schedule a paid consultation call or reach out to me via email or text to inquire about our paid immigration services. So a question we get very often from our clients is, can I apply for a PGWP, that's a post-graduation work permit, and a spousal open work permit or SOWP together with my spouse as a single application? The short answer is yes, you can submit these two applications together, but there are a lot of details and a few risks that you need to be aware of before you make this joint application. In this video, we'll dive into those details and those risks. So this scenario usually happens when one spouse, let's say the husband, came to Canada as an international student, and his wife or husband or partner came along with them on a spousal open work permit. Now the husband has graduated and is about to apply for a PGWP. So his partner wants to extend their spousal open work permit and plan to apply together as one. In this scenario, there are a few things to keep in mind. The first thing is that the spouse is not applying to extend their SOWP. They're applying for a brand new work permit, because the original work permit was as the spouse of an international student. The new work permit will be as the spouse of a foreign worker. So these are two completely different applications. Both are called SOWPs, but they are not the same they are not the same work permit. The previous work permit is not being extended. A completely new work permit, which is also called SOWP, is being applied for. And the qualifying criteria, eligibility criteria for both these work permits are completely different. The first work permit was obtained as a spouse of a student. The other work permit has a separate eligibility criteria. So the eligibility criteria for spouses of work permit holders have recently been updated by the government. Two things to keep in mind. Number one, eligibility criteria. The main worker, in this case the PGWP applicant, should have a job offer or be currently employed in a job that is in NOC 0, NOC 1, or in a shortage occupation listed under Tier 2 and Tier 3 list. The second is that the work permit of the main worker should be valid for at least 16 months or more when the spouse applies for the SOWP. So these two constitute the eligibility criteria for the spouse of the PGWP holder. Assuming that the spouse meets the eligibility criteria, now what happens when you apply together? So one very tricky rule to keep in mind in this situation is that the spouse of the PGWP holder is not eligible for an SOWP until and unless the PGWP has been approved first. So when you're applying together, these two applications are going into a queue. The PGWP has not yet been approved. So only after the PGWP gets approved, then the accompanying SOWP will be approved. So in this situation, a few different scenarios can happen. Suppose these two applications go into the processing queue together, the PGWP and the SOWP. These are going together. A processing officer, an IRCC officer, may pick up the PGWP application first, approve it if the person is eligible. The approval of PGWP makes the spouse eligible for the SOWP, because now they are the spouse of a person whose PGWP has been approved. That makes them instantly eligible. Then the officer picks up the spouse's application, sees that yes, I approved the PGWP, so this person is eligible, and they approve the spouse's SOWP a few minutes after. This is the ideal scenario. This is the order in which the processing happens and both get approved. Another scenario can be that the two applications were applied together and the spouse's application gets picked first for processing. In this case, things can get a little tricky. So the officer picks up the spouse, says that the spouse is not eligible for an SOWP because their spouse's PGWP is not yet approved. So in this case, these two applications are linked in the system because they are spouses. So in this case, the officer puts down the SOWP, picks up the PGWP, approves it if eligible, and then picks up this SOWP again and says, because the PGWP is approved, therefore I will approve this other application as well. And then the two get approved. So this is entirely up to the officer's discretion. If they pick up the SOWP, they are perfectly allowed to refuse the SOWP because PGWP is not approved yet. But they usually don't do this. They see that the PGWP application is pending. They put this down, they pick that up, approve it, and then they approve this. That is the normal practice. That is what most officers do, and that is what they are supposed to do according to their own instructions and policies. But legally, they are allowed to refuse the SOWP by picking it up first. This used to never happen earlier or happen extremely rarely, but lately we've been hearing some reports where spouses applied together and the SOWP got picked first, the PGWP was not processed, SOWP was refused, and shortly after the PGWP was approved. Now, this is a very unfortunate and a very, I would say, cruel and unethical way for the officers to process applications, but we have seen evidence that this has started happening lately. So that is the risk of applying PGWP and SOWP together. That the risk is that the SOWP might get picked up first, gets refused, and then the PGWP gets approved. In this case, what can you do? In this case, the PGWP approval comes in, then the SOW can be reapplied, and the reapplication will be stronger because the PGWP approval is in hand. But unfortunately, this delays the SOWP application by a lot because the PGWP approval might come several months later, and then you apply for SOWP and that approval takes several months. So the total amount of time passed, a lot of time passes, and the spouse cannot work during that time. So unfortunately, this would be the situation some people might find themselves in. What can you do to avoid it? You make a very strong application and explain the full circumstances when you are applying together the very first time. Don't give the officer any chance to pick up SOWP first and refuse it. So we have some ways of ensuring that happens, and we make a strong application in those situations. The second thing you could do is, suppose the SOWP in some cases is valid for a long time, maybe because the student completed their studies quickly. So SOWP is still valid for a very long time. So in that case, what is more advisable is wait for the PGWP approval to come in, and then you apply for your SOWP extension. Then your application will be strong because you have an approved PGWP attached to your application. Sure, your SOWP might end, but you will go on maintained status and continue to work after submitting your SOWP application. So if at all that is an option, then that is the safer route. If that is not an option, then of course you submit them together or a few days, few months, few weeks apart, and hope for the best and prepare a strong application. At our firm, we make a lot of spousal open work permit applications, and we make sure that the applications are strong and they're supported by all the evidence. People think that SOWPs are a simple application. They used to be a simple application, but looking at all the ways in which IRCC has been refusing SOWPs, it is no longer a simple application. It was never a simple application, but now it has become even tougher and even trickier. So if you need help with your SOWPs or PGWPs or any other immigration applications, feel free to reach out. My contact information and call booking link is on this video and in the description. Book a paid call if you have any immigration questions, or reach out to me via email or text to inquire about our paid immigration services. My name is Madhur Parashar. I'm a regulated Canadian immigration consultant. Like, share, and subscribe to this channel for latest Canadian immigration news, updates, and analysis.